You know what happens when a queen puts on a cursed jewel? A prince dies 3 years later. Coincidence? Opals were called devil's stones. They seemed to drain the life from their owners and appeared to scream when light hit them. Rubies soaked in blood from Eastern wars. Gold stolen from temples. Then came the strange disappearances. One queen hides for 40 years. Another wears it just once and never dares again. Why? What did they see that we cannot? Stay with us to learn the truth about one of Britain's darkest treasures. June the 18th, 1843. In her diary, young Queen Victoria wrote a sentence that reveals one of Buckingham Palace's most remarkable secrets. Albert has such taste. He arranges everything for me regarding my jewels. Behind these words lies the story of a man who changed the face of royal jewelry forever. Prince Albert of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha was more than just the husband of Britain's ruler. This extraordinary man possessed a rare gift. He saw beauty where others noticed only tradition. His artist's eye and innovator's soul turned every piece of jewelry into a work of art. Albert believed human innovation could make the world more beautiful, and this belief drove everything he did. When London prepared for a grand event in 1851, the Great Exhibition, Prince Albert became its visionary force. The enormous Crystal Palace would showcase the world's achievements, art, inventions, crafts, and of course, jewelry masterpieces. Albert dreamed of showing how different cultures could enrich each other through beauty. But one meeting at this exhibition changed everything. When the East India Company delegation unveiled their exhibition in the Crystal Palace, even worldly Londoners stood in awe. Indian craftsmen had brought treasures that seemed to hold all the mystique of the East. Every precious stone told stories of powerful rajas. Every setting kept secrets of ancient dynasties. Prince Albert stood before the displays as if spellbound. His gaze moved across the graceful curves of Mughal arches, the delicate golden lotus petals, the scattered gems that danced in London sunlight like living things. In that moment, a vision formed in his mind, a masterpiece that would unite British elegance with Eastern splendor. Returning to Buckingham Palace, Albert immediately contacted the jewelers Garrard. His plan was bold and unusual: create a tiara in Mughal style, but adapted for European tradition. The craftsman had to capture in metal and stones the dance of lotuses and the grandeur of ancient arches, a piece worthy of the Empress of India. Work began in earnest. 2 years went by, bringing the prince's vision to life. 1853 gave the world the Oriental circlet, a tiara adorned with 2,600 diamonds and shimmering opals. Albert chose opals deliberately. These stones were among his favorites. Their rainbow play reminded him of the world's diversity he treasured so much. When Victoria first wore the finished tiara, she glowed like a true Eastern empress. Golden lotuses seemed to bloom in her hair. Mughal arches created an aura of majesty, and the opals shimmered with every color of the rainbow. Albert had achieved his goal. He created a jewel that united 2 worlds. But fate had trials in store for this masterpiece. 1858 brought the last happy changes to the Oriental circlet story. The tiara was sent back to Garrard's craftsmen for a small but important modification. They added space at the back so the piece would no longer form a complete circle. This detail was meant to make the tiara more comfortable to wear. No sooner had the tiara returned to the palace than the happy era of its creation came to an end. The winter of 1861 proved fatal for the royal family. Prince Albert, just 42 years old, suddenly fell ill. The sickness developed rapidly, and on December the 14th, the life of the genius behind the throne was cut short. Victoria's grief knew no bounds. The woman who ruled the world's greatest empire found herself defenseless against loss. Her world collapsed overnight. Albert had been more than a husband. He was her advisor, her inspiration, her artistic guide. Without him, even the most beautiful things lost their meaning. On that tragic day, Victoria made a decision that shaped her life for the next 40 years. She dressed in mourning clothes and vowed never to remove them. All colored jewels, including the beloved Oriental circlet, were put away. Instead, the Queen wore only black jewelry, symbols of her endless sorrow. So began an era when Prince Albert's masterpiece fell into forced silence. For 40 years, the tiara lay in the royal vaults, as if waiting for its moment. Its creator had passed away, and the woman for whom it was made could no longer look upon it without tears. When one era ended, another began. January the 22nd, 1901 marked a turning point for the Oriental circlet. After 63 years of rule, Queen Victoria left this world, passing the crown to her son Edward VII. Along with the crown, the new Queen Alexandra inherited forgotten treasures, among them a tiara with a remarkable story. When Alexandra first saw the Oriental circlet, she was struck by the beauty of the Mughal arches and the elegance of the golden lotuses. But the rainbow shimmer of the opals stirred very different feelings in her. In those days, aristocratic society held a firm belief: opals brought misfortune. These stones were considered cursed, able to bring disaster to their owner. For the superstitious Alexandra, the decision was obvious. In 1902, she approached the jeweler's garage with an unusual request: replace all the opals with other stones. The choice fell on magnificent Burmese rubies, a gift that Nepal's rulers had presented to Queen Victoria back in the 1870s. The craftsmen began delicate work. Each opal had to be carefully removed without damaging the elegant setting, then a perfectly sized ruby installed in its place. The process took months, but the result exceeded expectations. The crimson rubies seemed to transform the tiara into a blazing crown. It became even more dramatic and majestic. However, the craftsman made one more change. Records in Garrad's royal ledger show that during the stone replacement, some arches were removed to make the tiara smaller and more comfortable to wear. Alexandra wanted the piece to fit her perfectly. The paradox was that despite all efforts to remake it, Queen Alexandra wore the updated Oriental circlet just once, during a state visit to Germany. Perhaps superstition proved stronger than beauty, or simply other jewels better suited her taste. So the magnificent tiara found itself in shadow again, awaiting a new owner who could truly appreciate its beauty. But the tiara would only meet true love decades later. 1936 brought real spring to the Oriental circlet's life. The tiara's new owner was Queen Elizabeth, wife of King George VI, who would later become known as the Queen Mother. From first sight, a special bond formed between her and the tiara, as if the jewel had finally found its true mistress. Elizabeth possessed remarkable style. She understood that the Oriental circlet was not just jewelry, but a work of art capable of transforming any look. The rubies blazed in her hair like living embers. The Mughal arches created an aura of Eastern wisdom, and the golden lotuses turned every appearance into a little performance. The tiara gained true fame through the lens of Sir Cecil Beaton, the legendary British photographer who could turn portraits into works of art. He first captured the Queen in the Oriental circlet in 1939, soon after King George VI's accession. In these shots, Elizabeth looked like a true Eastern empress, majestic and mysterious. The second famous photo session took place in 1950, when the Queen turned 50. Beaton created a series of portraits where Elizabeth's mature beauty harmonized perfectly with the tiara's ancient grandeur. Each photograph told the story of a woman who found beauty in past traditions. Beaton photographed the Queen in the Oriental circlet for the third and final time in 1953, just weeks before her daughter's coronation, the future Queen Elizabeth II. These portraits became a farewell to an era when the tiara actively participated in royal life. Over 17 years, the Oriental circlet became a true symbol of the Queen Mother's elegance. She chose it for the most important events, as if the tiara brought her luck and confidence. Finally, Prince Albert's masterpiece received the recognition it deserved from the moment of its creation. But even the strongest attachment has its end. February 6, 1952, King George VI left this world, leaving the throne to his daughter Elizabeth. By tradition, all royal jewels should have passed to the new ruler, including the Queen Mother's beloved Oriental circlet. However, the young queen made a decision that spoke to her wisdom and kindness. Elizabeth II understood perfectly how precious this tiara was to her mother. Over a decade and a half, a special bond had formed between them. The jewel had become part of the Queen Mother's very image. Instead of claiming the tiara for herself, the new ruler graciously allowed her mother to keep it. So the Oriental circlet remained with the Queen Mother until the end of her days. For another 50 years, the tiara shared her joys and sorrows, remaining a silent witness to a passing era. Elizabeth continued wearing it at major events, though not as often as in her youth. March 30, 2002, the Queen Mother completed her earthly journey at the age of 101. With her ended an entire era in British monarchy's history. The Oriental circlet once again became property of the reigning queen, now Elizabeth II. Remarkably, the new owner rarely wore this historic piece. Throughout her long reign, she put on the Oriental circlet just once, during a state visit to Malta in 2005. Perhaps the tiara was too strongly associated with her mother's image, or maybe her own style called for different jewels. Today, the Oriental circlet keeps its silence in Buckingham Palace vaults. This tiara remains the only piece of jewelry created by Prince Albert for Queen Victoria that still sits in the royal collection. All his other creations have either been lost or donated to museums. The story of this remarkable jewel is the story of 4 generations of the royal family, each adding their own chapter to the tiara's fate. Prince Albert gave it birth and soul, Queen Victoria, its first years of glory and long years of neglect. Queen Alexandra changed its appearance, replacing opals with rubies, but never learned to love it. The Queen Mother gave it true life, turning it into a symbol of elegance for an entire era. And Queen Elizabeth II granted it peace and a worthy place in history. When will the Oriental circlet see light again? This question remains unanswered. Perhaps a new generation of the royal family will find inspiration in this historic piece for their own traditions. Or maybe the tiara will forever remain a museum exhibit, reminding us of times when beauty and craftsmanship were valued above all else. But one thing we can say with certainty: as long as the British monarchy exists, the Oriental circlet's story will live on. In each ruby reflects the light of past eras, in every golden arch lies the wisdom of centuries, and in the graceful lotuses blooms eternal beauty that time cannot touch. So now you know the whole truth about the most mysterious tiara in British crown history. Cursed opals, bloody rubies, stolen temple gold. Reality turned out far more ordinary. 4 generations of queens, 4 different destinies, and each with their own secrets. What do you think? Is this tiara truly cursed, or is it all just fateful coincidences? Share your theories in the comments. We're dying to hear your thoughts. If this video made you see royal jewels in a new light, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel. And to catch our latest investigations into monarchy's dark secrets, subscribe and ring that notification bell. Trust us, even more fascinating stories await. See you in the next episode, where we'll reveal another bloody secret of the royal family.